Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Everquest Old School. And on tonight's episode, we are going to be starting another character. Now, I know you guys are probably thinking, wow, how many characters do you have? Well, I want to try every single one of them at some point. I don't know how far we'll get into this character, but, I want to give him a shot. The only time I ever played a warrior, and that's who we're going to be making today, was way back when, and I made him as a frog, and the frog jumping noise just drove me absolutely bonkers, because as a warrior, you're moving around quite a bit. You're not just kind of standing still into much further into the game. So I kind of want to give this guy a shot, and there's so much information that we're going to be going across here. I am going to try to cover as much as possible, so if you're kind of wondering, if you just want to see gameplay footage, probably skip to the next episode, because this one's going to be just going through character creation and me passing on as much information as I possibly can to you to help you pick the right class for you, because there is a lot of differences between the classes you can pick. Now, you can play a warrior in many different races: barbarian, dark elf, dwarf, gnome, half elf, a halfling, human, Ixar. You can do ogre, you can do troll, even wood elf. Each and every one of them seems to have their unique abilities to them, some of them more so than others, such as barbarians are really nice because they're kind of skinny. They're tall, they're very big still. They do kind of get in the way in dungeons, but they're very skinny, to the point of, in a dungeon, you can still operate fairly decently without a shrink. And that could be a pretty big problem for an ogre or a troll. They need shrink potions, or they need the bracer that gives them shrink on it, and they have to be the right level to cast that. So you might want to take that into consideration if you're not quite comfortable, buying those or having those on you at a low level. You might want to go with a skinnier class like a dark elf or a barbarian. Now, ogres level a lot slower, and trolls and Ixars level even slower than that. So if you're one of those people that don't want to spend a lot of time at the lower levels, you might want to go with a different class. And I'll go over in each and every single race what the experience bonus or penalty is, as we go a little bit further into it. But I just want to kind of give you that little heads up that it does kind of matter what race you're picking on this one. Also, each one does have a little bit of what I want to go through, like the Ixars. They get a natural AC bonus, but the downside to having that extra AC, which is really nice for a warrior, it's almost one of your main stats at a higher level when you start maxing out everything. AC is king. You can't wear most plate armor, which kind of reverses what you're just getting. You're getting extra AC, but since you can't wear most plate, you're negating a lot of the AC you'd be getting off of some of the high-end items. So that is going to probably hurt you more at a higher level than it is at a lower level. Lower level, you're going to be better off because you get that AC bonus without having the gear. At higher level, once you start getting the gear, you're going to do far less, I think, than most other warriors that can wear plate. So, which side are you going to be on? Like, are you going to do more lower level stuff and you probably never get into high-end rating? Then you could probably go with that. And again, they're really small and skinny, so they're not going to get caught in dungeons, and so you can kind of move around a little bit better with them in that regard. Plus, they get a natural healing regeneration, so they heal a little bit faster. So if you're going to be doing any kind of soloing with the warrior, which I would not suggest as a warrior, you don't really want to solo. You want to be in groups, or at least a duo partner to help you out with that massive amount of hit points that are going to go up so slow. But, the Ixar is definitely something that will help you with that. Trolls also have a natural healing boost or bonus that will regen, and they are kind of negative in the sense that they are hated in a lot of places. Same thing with dark elves and, ogres and, Ixars. They're going to be hated in a lot of different places. So if you're kind of not, you're not accustomed to the game, you're new to the game, I would highly suggest picking a race that is neutral or good. You're going to be liked in a lot more places if you're a good race. Obviously, good is a kind of one of those things that more people are going to accept you in. And this game, they only have about 4 cities that are evil. And they're spread out really kind of all over the place, and they're in like little tiny corners all by themselves, so they're not easy to get to. And if you're not, again, familiar with the game, it's going to make things a lot more difficult on you, like where you can sell when you're out there fighting with everybody else and everybody picks up all this loot and they go over to a vendor to sell. You may not be able to sell at that vendor. Chances are you won't be able to sell at that vendor. And so you have to hang on to it until you travel like 2 zones over, maybe sometimes even more zones over to sell your items and then run all the way back. And that's like a 15-20 minute trip every single time, whereas it may only take them like 30 seconds. So they're going to be able to make a little bit more money. So your very first character, you're going to be making things a little bit more hard on yourself if you pick an evil race. So again, where are you at in the game? Brand new to the character, brand new to the game, may not be the very first one I would pick, but that is completely up to you. You can do it. It's just going to be a little bit harder on you. Also, ogres are, like I said, disliked in a lot of towns, but they are really, really nice in the fact that they cannot be stunned from the front. Now, if they turn around, they can definitely be stunned from the back. If you're running away, you're always going to take more damage. But as a warrior, chances are you're going to, at a higher level anyways, have a puller bring the mobs back to you. And you're just going to be standing there taunting it off of him immediately and attacking it. And the only reason you would ever run, I can't think of one, because as a warrior, you have to hold the ground while everybody else scatters. They're going to gate, they're going to run for the zone if things go bad. Whatever the case is, you're the one who holds the ground, and you eat that death. You die for everybody else. And so you never really have to turn your back to the enemy unless, you happen to be traveling to a group in a dungeon or something like that, and you get attacked from behind. Like, that's the only instance I can really see that being a thing. But so that's really nice that you cannot be stunned. Stuns are going to be a major thing at later levels. Also, all the large races have the ability to slam, and slam is a nice thing as well. You also will get the ability to bash, but you have to have a shield on. And bashing and slamming a little bit less than bashing for sure. Bashing will always, in the most part for me, stun the enemy and interrupt their spell. Slam is supposed to do the exact same thing, but you don't have to have a shield on. So that's really, really nice. So I'm going to go with an ogre just because of that frontal AE. I'm going to try to min-max this guy as much as possible. One other thing is I've never really played an ogre, so this is going to be kind of a new experience for me, which is another reason I'm picking this race. I'm trying to do one of every class and one of every race so I can get a feel for the starting city, the starting area, and to see which one I like the best out of all of them, because I kind of missed that the first time around. Now, starting stats, you're going to have different starting stats depending on the race that you pick. Barbarian starts with pretty good strength and stamina, 113 strength and 105 stamina. Dexterity is also another thing you need to be worried about. Now, obviously, stamina is hit points, and as a tank, as a meat shield, you want to be able to take as much of that damage as possible. You're not a DPS guy. You're not trying to dish out damage. That's where strength comes into play. The higher the strength, the more damage you're going to dish out. But you do have to take that into account because as a tank, you have to hold aggro. And I can tell you this from watching and playing with other warriors. They do not hold aggro very well until around level 35. You're going to have struggling a lot with that. And one of the things that really kind of changes at that level, beyond the fact that your taunt just suddenly gets a little bit better, or a lot better in a lot of situations, is that your weapons start proccing. And as you create the right combination of weapons, snares and roots and stuns on the procs of your weapons, you're going to pick up a lot more hate because of it. So dexterity starts coming into play because your weapons proc more with dexterity. So that's going to be a third side to it. But strength will be a play because the more damage you do, the more aggro you build up. But you're never, ever going to be able to compete with a rogue or any of the casters who can do just massive amounts of damage right off the bat. But it is a thing that some warriors try to raise up a little bit higher. So you may want to think about that when picking the right class that or the right race. Dark Elves start with 70 on strength and 75 on stamina. So that's pretty low, but they do get a really high agility, 90, and their intel is 99 to start with. So you don't need intel as a warrior, but you do kind of want it for certain other classes. And that's why some people will go with a Dark Elf, such as like a Shadow Knight, because you do want that intel for your mana. So some of these are kind of geared towards other classes versus the one you're picking. Dwarves start with 100 on strength, 100 on stamina, which is really nice, and 90 on dexterity. So that's not too bad at all. Plus, they're small. The only problem I would say with dwarves is their jump is hilarious to watch. I love the way it looks, the animation. You roll when you jump, but it can make getting around a little bit harder when you're jumping over areas, at least for me anyways, it has been the case. Gnomes is 70 on strength and 80 on stamina, and 95 on, is 85, not 95, 85 on dexterity. I wrote all these stats down earlier so I can tell you guys. 85 on dexterity, so that's really nice. It's a nice kind of even ground, but you're going to get a little bit more on your intel and a little bit more on your agility. So again, maybe not the best class to pick for a warrior. Half elf, is 80, 80, and 85. Again, they're going to have a little bit higher on agility. So, yeah, again, maybe not the best class. Halfling is going to level the fastest. They're 80 and 85 and 90 for dexterity, and they have 100 on agility. Yeah, pretty low, but it is something you can do if you want to level really, really quickly. Humans are 85 and 85 and 75 for dexterity. Right down the middle, as humans always are. They're not great for any one of them. They're not, you can't min-max anything when you pick a human, but it is a good starting point if you're completely clueless on like what race to pick. Humans are a safe bet. You won't start in the negative, I should say. You will start just, mediocre, and you never really get past mediocre, but it's still a good race to pick if you want to have that, that kind of starting point as well. Ixars have an 80, 80, and 85 for dexterity. They have a high agility, 95, and they have a pretty decent wisdom, which is 80, but you don't really need that as a warrior, so that's kind of all going to waste. Then you start getting into some of the big dogs, like ogres, which is what we're picking. They start with 140 strength and 132 stamina. And then their dexterity is only 70, but their agility is 75. So the stats that they need are incredibly good right off the bat. They're kind of taking a penalty when it comes to their charisma, because their charisma goes in the toilet. It goes down to 37. But as a warrior, the only time you need charisma is when you sell. So you're going to get less price. You're going to lower prices in the store, but you're going to get all the stats that you need 99% of the time out there. And money, again, is not the main concern when you make a warrior, and I would not make a warrior probably for your very first class, or not, at least not your money maker. You're going to need a money maker down the road to kind of help outfit and equip this guy, because he's not going to be able to do it too well on his own unless he gets the stuff in a group. Then you got trolls who have 118 in strength and 119 in stamina to start with, and 75 in dexterity. However, their agility is 88, so if you want to take that into account, it is a little bit higher than the base agility of an ogre, which is 75. And you can go with a wood elf, and a friend of mine has gone with a wood elf, but your base stats are 75 on strength, 75 on stamina, and 80 on dexterity, but you get 100 in agility. You also get the ability to hide, you get the ability to forge, so that's kind of a cool little thing to have on that one, but I would not really recommend it. If you're going to try to min-max, definitely go with an ogre or a troll or even a barbarian. Now, the barbarian has problems with night vision. So if you're not familiar with the zones and you're going to have difficulty pulling because you can't see the mobs very well at far distances at night, then maybe not the best class for you. But they are really, really good in a lot of other aspects. As far as where you should put your starting points, depending on your class, these are all based off of your own opinion, but a meat shield, a tank, really needs to have the max amount of stamina. So if you're picking a class, or a race, I should say, that doesn't start with a lot of stamina, you need to put the starting points you have, the 25, as much as possible into stamina. So basically every race out there needs to have 25 into stamina, except for one, and that is ogres. And ogres start with 132 stamina, but they only start with 70 dexterity. And dexterity is going to help you proc later on, like I mentioned. So if you can jack that up to 90 or 95, that is definitely going to give you a leg up. And from what I've seen, it's a little bit harder to get dexterity on a warrior. You have to get very specific items that cost a whole lot more later on in the levels than it is to get stamina or health items. So that's going to help you out, the fact that you're going to be able to, not only have a high strength and a high stamina, but have that high dexterity so you proc more, and you're able to keep aggro a lot more too once your weapons start procking, which is, really, really nice. As far as experience bonus goes, this is, going to be your opinion on like how much you want to play that character as you go along the game. Now, barbarians get a plus 5.5% to leveling. You have dark elves, they get a plus 10%. Dwarves get plus 10%. Gnomes, half-elves get plus 10%. Halflings get plus 14.5%. Humans get 10%. Ixars get negative 8%. So you're actually having to earn more experience to keep up with your friend who may be the same class as you because you picked an Ixar. Ogres get a negative 3.5%, so it's not quite as bad as an Ixar or a Troll, but it's, not good either. Trolls get a negative 8%, so it's right there with the Ixars, and then Wood Elves get plus 10%. So, Halfling's going to be the easiest, plus 14.5, and the Ixars and the Trolls are going to be the worst because it's negative 8%. But again, not really that big of a deal. Like if you get into good groups, you got to earn a little bit more, but you'll get there eventually. And once you get to max level, there's really nothing more for you to do but to get better armor. So I like to get the journey and try to draw it out as much as possible. Stay away from double experience weekends. And, if I can get like negative 8% on it, that would be fine with me too. But that's just me on that one. Now, religion doesn't really play a big role in it except to make your life even more difficult than it already is. But before we get to that, let me go ahead and read the description down here on the bottom. As I said, this is going to be a long episode, but we're going to do it as much as possible because there's a lot of information to kind of pass on to you. But it says, warriors are the master of armed combat and defense, taking the points in battle and going head-to-head with the most dangerous creatures of Norath. Warriors are a melee class with the ability to wear plate, armor, and wield all types of weapons. They can dual wield as well, guys, so they can have 2 weapons, 1 in each hand. Warriors build their strength and stamina to unheard of levels, making them far harder than any other class. When combined with their heavy armor and excellent defensive skills, warriors are unmatched in their ability to survive the most brutal battles. Warriors train themselves in the skills of combat, mastering the use of all weapons and tactics. Warriors also learn to taunt their opponents, making themselves the focus of all their enemies' attacks, allowing the less resilient members of their group to remain safe from harm. Warriors are often the cornerstone of a good group, providing a strong defense while also dealing heavy damage to their enemies. Warriors face poorly when adventuring alone and are excellent choices for those who enjoy grouping and taking the front line in battle. So they kind of went over a few things that we haven't really discussed yet, such as the defensive skills. Defensive skills are something you get at a later level. I think it's around 51, I think, as you get your first one. And there are amazing things to have. They are basically something you can activate, and you're able to kind of obfuscate a little bit of the damage. You can dodge out of a little bit more of the damage for a certain point, and then wait. I think it's like 5 minutes, and it comes back. You can use it again. There's other ones on there where you can kind of raise your resist as well to magic spells and things of that sort. So if you know there's a really, really tough mob, and maybe you're pulling the named, maybe a pull went bad, and all of a sudden there's like 5 guys there, the cleric's low on power or mana, and you need that extra little few seconds to survive the battle. You can pop one of those things, and you're going to be able to survive pretty well because you have that ability. Other people do not have. Warriors are the only ones who get those defensive skills, so those are really, really nice. Taunting is another thing they've mentioned. It's a skill that you're going to have to raise as you level, and it's going to allow you to push a button, and it will, almost like you're calling it a name or something like that. In the old days, what it was equivalent to so much damage. So when you attack an enemy and you do like 100 points of damage, now that person has 100 points of hate, basically. They have done that much damage versus somebody who's done 0 will have 0 versus 100. That guy has aggro. When I hit the taunt button, it used to be worth so much or so much percentage of the damage, and I could kind of pull that away from the other guys. Even though I wasn't out damaging them, I was taunting them for more damage than the other guy was doing, in essence. And so they would turn their attention towards me and beat on me. And that's what you want as a warrior. You want them to beat on you, and not the cleric, not the wizard, not the enchanter on your face, because you can take it and they can't. You have the armor for it, they don't. And that is a really, really useful skill, and it's going to be something you're going to be hitting all the time. Get used to clicking that button or hitting the one key or wherever you have that set up, because that is something that is going to be vital to your character. Now, we are going to put all of our points into dexterity because we want that proccing ability at later level, and we already have a really good strength, and we already have a really good stamina, and we can get those skills pretty easy, to be honest. So let's go to the next one. Now we have, the different gods that we can pick from. Agnostic is the safest bet. You don't know what to go with, just go with agnostic. It basically means you're not committing to any of the beliefs, but you're also not saying they don't exist. So you're just kind of like right down the middle. You also have faceless, and then you have the warlord, and I think there's a few other ones if you go down some of the other different routes. The only thing this is really denying you is there's a few of the cultural armor sets that are set to specific deities. You're not going to be able to wear those, but there's plenty of other armor out there that you can wear. Another thing you want to consider about armor is depending on the size of your character. Obviously, a troll and an ogre, they're going to be large, armor wise. And there's sets of pieces out there that are designed that way. They're called large, they're called small, they're called medium bandit, large bandit. You're going to have a large bandit armor to wear for this guy right here versus somebody else like a dark elf who can wear small. There's other ones that can wear small and medium. I think barbarians are right there in that line where they can wear small and medium, or maybe it's medium and large. I think that they're able to wear, but at later level that becomes less and less of a thing as they realize that warriors, they want the basically the same armor. You turn in the quest. How do we make it specific to your class without kind of making some people not able to use it and making it very one-sided just for you when you turn that piece in? And they weren't quite able to do that, so they're just like, we'll just make it where all warriors can use it and kind of negate the fact that it's small, medium, and large. We won't even put that on there. And so that's not really a huge thing at like in-game stuff, but there are a few pieces out there that will be, so there's always an exception to every rule. We're gonna go ahead and get a name here. I hadn't thought about a name, like what I should go with, but I want something easy to spell. Try not to put I's and L's next to each other. Try not to put R's and N's next to each other because it looks like an M a lot of the time. Try to go with something that is easy to spell so that when people are trying to invite you into a group, they're able to do so very, very easily without having to be like, oh, I misspelled the guy's name. How do you spell that guy? Let's just get the other guy because I can't figure out what letters are in there. If you put a lot of I's and L's next to each other, they all look the same. You put the R's and the N's, they look like M's. You put M's and N's next to each other, and they blur together. It's very, very difficult. Try not to put U's and I's next to each other. Of course, go with what makes you feel good. Pick a name that means something to you, for sure. But yeah, take those little tips into consideration because you'll get a whole lot of more groups if they can spell it easy, and it's not too long. You want kind of a short name. Gugglin. That kind of sounds like an ogre name to me. So I think that's not bad. I like that. Let's go with that one and see if we can start the. Yep, that one was accepted. You may have to sit there several times if you're picking your own name to find one that has not already been taken, because some of the best ones out there definitely have. Keep in mind also that you can't just pick, like Darth Vader. Yeah, I guess you could on this server, but on live, they block those things. You can't make yourself to be something ridiculous or named after somebody. You can't pick like Bob or John or anything like that. They don't want you to use like a real name. It's a fantasy game. They want you to come up with a fantasy name for your character, a nickname, your call sign almost. And most people probably have one by now. You'll see on the left-hand side, there is no spell bar here at all. So I'm going to move some stuff around just because this is the way I set up all of my characters. So I know where everything is. I'm very familiar with things, second nature to me. And I am going to go ahead and put my target window up here as well. And I am going to shut down my song window. That's something you don't need at all. And you will see that your guy is butt naked in the middle of a city. This is pretty cool. This is where your adventure will start. Now, what do you do? I mean, where do you go when you first start? Well, this game is not friendly to people in that regard. They don't hold your hand. They just throw you into the world and say, figure it out. I mean, there's a town here. You might be in a town. You might be in like 3 zones into the town. Like with Dark Elves, you start in the second quarter, which means you have to go from one zone to another zone and then another zone just to get outside. And if you don't know where you're going, those zones can lead to other zones and you'll get so lost for hours on end. You will, you'll be screaming and tearing out your hair. So let's look into our inventory. You can hit the I button or you can go over to this EQ button and hit the inventory button. Now I'm going to disable my hints because I already know pretty much all of this stuff. I'm not an expert on the game by any means, but I know most of this stuff. Now you're going to have some stuff in here that you're going to be able to use right away, such as your weapon. You can left click on it and you can drag it over to your inventory. You can also click on it and drag it up into the little box right here, and it will auto equip it only if there's an item not already equipped. If there's an item here like a sword, and I drop it up here into this little thing right here, it will immediately go right back into my backpack or whatever open slot that I have, even if it's not as, even if it's better than what I have, because you have to do that manually. So kind of get used to doing that manually. Now you can right click on it and hold the mouse button down and this little window will pop up. You drag your cursor over it and it will stay up there and you can see the different stats that are on it. No trade means that you cannot trade this item or sell this item to another player or to an NPC. So this item is yours. Once you pick it up, it is on your character forever. So make sure before you pick something up that's no trade in a group, you find out if somebody else needs it first. And it will give you a little notification when you try to pick up a no trade item that says, do you really want to pick up this no trade item? And that's when you can say no, or you can say yes and pick it up. Now, this item is your beginner weapon, so it's not that big of a deal. If you lose it, you'll get better down the road fairly quickly, but they want you to have something. They don't want you to go out there with your bare fist. You're a warrior. If you're a healer, you may start with a dagger and some type of breastplate or something along those lines, because it's going to need more armor for you. But this is pretty good. Now, it can say next to no trade magical item. Magical items will allow you to attack magical creatures such as will-o-wisp. You got ghouls require a magical weapon. A lot of creatures at higher level require a magical weapon. This one is not a magical weapon. Most weapons you find at this level will not be that case. That's something you're going to have to get and earn off of a named guy or something along those lines. You can also see if it says lore. Lore is something you need to be familiar with, because it means you can only have one of those items on that character. So if you pick up an item that says lore, you kill that mob again maybe 20 minutes down the road, and it has another item like that, and you're like, well, I'm only going to equip one, but I'd like to sell the other one. You can't even pick it up. It's to stop you from, camping that item again and again and again, or using multiples of the item if it happens to be a weapon that you can dual wield. They don't want you to be able to dual wield two of them, so they throw that in there to make it where you can't do it. And so it's just something you need to be aware of, something that might pop up from time to time. You don't see too many of those items in the game, but they are there. Now, slot will tell you what slot it goes into, primary, secondary, or it will say chest or bracer or hands or something along those lines. And that will tell you what slot it's going to go into your inventory. Just because it looks like a shoulder piece does not always mean it's going to be a shoulder piece. There's a lot of capes out there that will go onto your shoulder as well, kind of like in the old days where you might have a cape that goes all the way on your back, or you might be fancy and you throw it on one shoulder. They kind of did the same thing in the roleplay. That works as well. Then you can look at the skill required. It says 1H. Well, that means one-handed. Instead of 2H would be like two-handed. So you're using a two-handed weapon. You can't have two-handed weapons in your hand when you dual wield. They have to be one-handed. So that's something to take into account. Then you look at attack delay. That is the amount of seconds. Well, it's not in seconds. I think you had a point in between, so it's like 2.9 seconds if it's 29 like that, but it says 29. That's the attack delay between each swing of your weapon. Then you look at the damage is 4, and you look at the ratio, so it's 4 damage and 20 delay or 29 delay, whatever the case may be. And you have to figure that out, which ones are better. It might be a high damage, but a really, really slow delay may not be as good in the long run in a fight over the course of the whole fight as something that's a low damage, but a really, really fast, acting weapon. So it's very low delay on that one. Again, you have to consider that and figure those out. And there's tons of people out there, forums and websites and things of that sort that you can ask and read to find out which weapons are the best for your very specific class and the situation that you're in. Sometimes if you're doing DPS, you want completely different weapons than if you're tanking. And so you might have to consider, having a backpack full of weapons. I would anyways because of the procs that are on them. But a lot of information to pass on, guys. So like I said, it's kind of a slow one. But weight is something as a warrior you're not going to have to consider. But there it is right there. If you're a monk, definitely something to look at. Monks will actually lose their AC or mitigation, however you want to pronounce, say that armor class is the way they do it. And this one, mitigation, is for Everquest too, but it's the same thing. And it's how much you'll get hit from a mob. The higher your AC or mitigation, the better you'll resist the damage coming into you. Weight will actually affect a monk. Past 15 pounds, their AC will start to go down. Warriors do not have that problem. You can be maxed out on your weight. You could be overweight by hundreds of pounds, and your AC does not become affected whatsoever. So that is not going to be a thing for you. You will run slower as any class out there when you're overweight. So if you're moving around a lot, you might want to consider how much, you have allotted to that. But you're going to be concentrating on strength anyways down the road. So that's, like I said, not going to be a thing for you. Size, however, is going to be. So this is a medium thing. I guess you can wear medium weapons at the very least. I don't know if you can wear medium armor, but we'll find out about that later on. And then it tells you the class and the race. So when you find an item on the ground and you're like, can I use that? You need to look at that and see. It says warrior, PAL is for Paladin, Ranger, Shadow Knight, Bard, and Rogue. And then it says race is all. So you're set. You can definitely use that. You're a warrior, and you're within all the races, so you can wear that item. They will put the initials for each one of the races sometimes, and you'll have to make sure you're like, oh, I can't wear that one. That sucks. So I'll have to pass on it. Even though it's made for a warrior, you're just not able to use it. Now, you also get some food, and you get some water. You get some skin of milk, and you get some bread cakes. These will last you about an hour for each one of the food and the water. Food will let your life go up, and water will let your mana go up. So if you have a caster, you could actually forgo ever putting food on your character. He's not going to starve to death. It will give you a message down in your chat bar, hey, he's hungry, he needs to eat something, but it won't affect him in any way if he doesn't need his health to regenerate. But I would suggest having both is just the best thing to do. It doesn't take up that many slots, and if you get good food and water, they last a decent amount of time, and somebody can summon them for you and stuff like that. So that's really not a big deal. Just make sure you always have some on you, especially if you want to regenerate your life. You need that. Now, you have a book here. You have Tomb of Order of Discord. That is a book that you can turn into the guy right here in front of you. See him over there in the robe. That will set you as a player versus player killer. You want to be able to attack other players. That also has the negative connotation of you're not being able to be healed or buffed by other players, because you could be at any moment, attacked by another player, and that would interfere with it. So you can't be power leveled through a fight like that. So if you want to do PvP on a PvE server, player versus environment server, you can do that by handing in that book. I would highly suggest, if you're not, sure if that you want to go down that route, just delete it for now for the space, and if you ever want that book later down the road, you can just come up to this guy and hail him, and he'll give you a whole nother book, and then you can make yourself that way down the road. You can also change back once you've done that, so you can try it out, see if you like it. If you don't, come back and do it, reset it so you're fine and you're ready to go. You also get a note here, and it's a tattered note. You right click on it, it will open it up for you. You can see right there, that's all you have to do, and move the screen around so you can see it, and it will say, you go, Gunchick, give note, become Crackneck Warrior. But it's in kind of like a broken English. These guys, as you look at their intel, they're not the smartest people in the world, and so they speak in that broken language. But it's a roleplay aspect. It's every one of these guys has lore behind them, just like the old D&D games used to, where they think about the character rather than just throw you in there and it just feels like everything else. These guys have lore, they have history, and it all makes sense within that role. And the race stats based off of that roleplay makes sense as well. And so people would go through the game speaking like that on purpose through broken English, because they were doing roleplay of their character, and it was really, really cool. But you can't really do that anymore unless you... I guess you can, but not very many people roleplay, unfortunately. But it's kind of cool when you run across somebody who's willing to do it. Now, where do we go? We have to find this guy, this Guntrick, which is why it says you go Guntrick. It basically means you're looking for that guy. Where is he at? I have absolutely no clue where he's at. I think he's further over here, because I think this will actually zone us out in this direction. But we're going to go ahead and end the first episode here. I will look for this guy, and if I find him, I'll give you a note on the second episode. But this guy, he's going to be a twink. He's definitely going to be a twink. I have a lot of stuff on my cleric that I've been holding on, just random warrior stuff that only warriors can use, or really well for warriors, that I've been getting here and there as like hand-me-downs, or just random stuff that we got that have been taking up space in my backpack that I kind of want to clear up. So that's all going to go on to this guy. The next time you see him, he's going to be decked out. We're going to go out. We're going to fight in the swamp. It's going to be a little unhanded, where I'm telling you guys how well they are and what they can fight, but it's going to be kind of cool. I can't wait to check it out. Now, there were several different faces you can pick from, and if you don't like the face that you have right now, you can, of course, go into your inventory, and you can click on, where is it at, face right here, and you can change the face that you start with at any time that you want. But I would definitely say pick it out before you start the class, and find the one that you really, really enjoy, and then, they're kind of all ugly, though. I mean, it is a warrior. They are ogres, I should say, and yeah, trolls are going to be the same way. They're going to be pretty hideous in that cool and kind of fascinating way, though. Again, guys, I'm AC Gamer, and I will definitely catch you all next time. Hey guys, and welcome to the disembodied voice of AC Gamer. We are definitely going to be doing a lot more series in the future, but here are a few of them that you guys might find interesting. Of course, you're more than welcome to check them out. I would love to hear your comments. Again, if you do enjoy these videos, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe. It's definitely the indicator that I use to tell if you guys want to see more videos like that, of that particular game style, of that series in the long run. So when you guys leave comments down, it helps me decide whether we should keep doing it, as well as whether you want to see games like that in the future. And here are a few of them right here. I kind of picked out a few of different genres. We will be doing spotlights for other YouTubers in the future. So if you want to get a little shout out, definitely let me know. If you group with me, chances are you will get a shout out in here eventually. But for now, these are just 4 series that I have that I feel like could use a little bit more attention and that you guys might actually enjoy as well. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we will definitely catch you all next time.